Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630. WMAL.
7:08 on a Tuesday morning. Brian Neiman, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson has the day off. Betsy McCoy, 1 hour from now, former Lieutenant Governor of New York and an expert on Obamacare, the health care, and we'll get into the latest on the Class Act going away with Betsy McCoy 1 hour from now. Senator Jim Inhofe is on the phone with us now, friend of the program, Republican from Oklahoma. Senator, good morning.
Well, good morning. Good morning, Brian. Is Mary Catherine there with you?
She's
yes,
right
indeed.
here.
Hey, Mary Catherine, I have to say this. You had my sympathy last night trying to get a word in edgewise on Bill O'Reilly.
How you know it's the greatest training ground there is.
Oh, it is. If you can get a word in there, you can do it anywhere.
That's
So
for
you
sure.
guys don't do that to me this morning.
We promise we won't. In fact, I'm glad you're on the program this morning because we talked a lot about the fact that we now have troops on the ground in Uganda. We were saying yesterday, what the heck are we doing? How is this possible? Is Congress notified? And a lot of people are confused and don't really understand why we're there. You are in favor of this move, so you tell me why we're in Uganda and who is the Lord's Resistance Army and why do we need to fight them?
Well, now, Brian, first of all, I'm ranked as and have consistently been ranked the most conservative member and 100% Center for Security Policy, pro-defense and all that stuff. But people don't understand what it really is. I first ran into Joseph Kony and the Lord's Resistance Army 15 years ago in northern Uganda. This is a guy that came in as a spiritual leader 25 years ago, and this is what he does. I wish you had seen on the floor. In fact, you can pull it up on my website, anyone who wants to see it. I showed the pictures on the floor yesterday, blown up of these little kids, as to what I have witnessed for the last 15 years that I've been trying to help get rid of Joseph Kony. Here's a guy that goes into the villages. He abducts hundreds of little kids. They're between the ages of 11 and 14, sells the girls into slavery for prostitution, and then the boys, they teach them. You've probably heard the word Children's Army or the Invisible Army. It's called different things. But these kids have to learn to use AK-47s. Then they have to, once they are trained to be a part of the Joseph Kony's army, they have to go back to their villages and murder their siblings and their parents. And if they don't do that, when they run them down and they cut their ears off, they cut their noses off, they cut their lips off, they cut their hands off. And I showed very graphic pictures on the floor of the Senate yesterday as to how bad this thing is. Well, anyway, this is something that's been going on for 25 years. And you're right. Even Rush Limbaugh in his program yesterday, and I commented on the floor, he said that, even Schnurdly didn't know anything about the NRA. Mm-hmm. So not many people do know about it. So anyway.
All right, but what are 100 troops on the ground going to do, especially if they're really not allowed to fight them?
Let me finish, Brian. I passed a law. In fact, there are two of them. In fact, I had 64 co-sponsors on the Lord's Resistance Army Disarmament in Northern Uganda Recovery Act. 64. It's the largest number of senators on any African bill in the history of the Senate. We were able to get it passed without one dissenting vote. Now, in that, all we did is say it's now the policy of the United States to assist Africa in getting rid of this terrorist operation. In the Senate Armed Services Committee, we actually put language in there that we cannot use any combat. We are not allowed to do it. In fact, that was my language. It said specifically it prohibits the U.S. forces from participating in combat operations to apprehend and remove Kony from the LRA commanders. I put that language in myself because we don't have to do it. Some people aren't aware, Brian, that we have thousands of troops right now in Africa under a train and equip program. It's called 1206 and 1208, where we go in and we train these Africans to fight so that as a squeeze takes place in terrorism in the Middle East, and they go down through Djibouti and the Horn of Africa, that they are able to take care of themselves, and we don't have to send our troops over to do it. So this is essentially what they're doing. They're going over there to help them with intelligence. They are precluded from doing any kind of combat, and it's a major thing in that area. I have personally spent, as I said, 15 years speaking with the presidents of Uganda, Rwanda, the Central African Republic, the DRC, and then most recently, just last week, I was in this new country in Africa, South Sudan, that you're familiar with. I had 25 members of parliament in one room just last week, and they said that's the major thing that we can do for this entire region of Central Eastern Africa. Now, keep in mind that's where the center of the East African Republic is, or the Eastern Africa Coalition. So it's a major thing that we can do with virtually no cost and no risk at all to any American lives. And I think it needs. I appreciate the fact that you let me tell that story.
Well, I wonder what's your sense of why Obama acted on this now? I mean, the resolution that you're talking about passed in 2010, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is your sense of why Obama acted on it now, and how Democrats who counted on him to be less hawkish when he was running for office, how they feel about this?
I don't know how they feel about it, and I don't think he personally knows that much about the issue. Mary Catherine, I talked, and I've spent a lot of time with President Museveni in Uganda, President Kagame in Rwanda, and all of the people that I have mentioned, those countries. They have, keeping in mind the two presidents I just mentioned, they came from the bush. They were fighters, and they didn't want to admit that they were not able to take out this one gang of terrorists by themselves. And so I was the one who got them together even with Kabila of the DRC, and they agreed that they would work together if we would help them with intel, help them with some of the resources to go in and get this guy. And so it's something that I don't. The reason, to answer your question, I suspect the reason is that they have now said we have an idea of where this guy is, and we need some resources to go in and get him. And but I don't know that for a fact.
Your colleague, Senator McCain, although he's in favor of the action, also suggested it could be a slippery slope. Some people say, we're stretched pretty thin here. Do you have any worries about this going farther? Is it 100 troops and that's the end of it?
Yeah, that is the end of it, because keep in mind, Mary Catherine, we have in our train and equip throughout the continent of Africa several thousand American troops, and they are down there training. That's what this group is doing. They are training and helping them, and this is something. There's no slippery slope on this one. Anyone who would suggest that isn't really into the issue, and I think, and keep in mind, there wasn't one dissenting vote in the United States Senate when I passed this legislation.
All right, Senator Inhofe, there's a slew of other topics we'd love to get to, but we're out of time. We know you're very busy this morning, but we'd love to have you back on the show in the near future.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, Senator
Thanks,
Inhofe,
Senator.
Republican from Oklahoma, making the case on why we have troops in Uganda.